Thanks for watching the Council in Brief. I'm Susan Kennedy. We're here with a wrap-up of all the news of the Montgomery County Council for this last week in July. We begin this week with the proposed curfew for Montgomery County teenagers and the nerve this measure has struck throughout the county. It was a full house at the council office building for the public hearing on the bill, which was introduced by the county executive. Mr. Leggett created the measure to address issues with increased gang activity and crime involving minors.
I think with the curfew law, we're doing a couple of things. One, we're keeping youth safe because a lot of the crime perpetrated in the CBD of Silver Spring, for example, is youth-on-youth crime. We're keeping our residents safe because there has been, even though crime overall in the county went down, certain areas of the county crime has spiked.
I have mixed feelings about it. It's hard to say whether it's going to be effective. And I think, we really have to think about it as this a necessary tool. I mean, and you have to do a lot more than this. I mean, this is one thing, but, everybody knows that you can do anything after 11 or 12 o'clock at night. You can do it before 11 or 12 o'clock at night. If gangs are going to come here to fight, they could say, we'll meet at 8 as opposed to meet at 11.
I'm very skeptical about it. The executive has not made the case at this point for it. Crime is down. There has been no statistics that have been provided about how a curfew would affect them. There's been no study done of other curfews by the executive. The question of whether this should be a county-wide or a more local effort is another issue. I have many questions about it, as do other council members, and I think that the jury may be out, but the burden is on the executive to make the case for it, and they have not made the case for it so far.
The council has approved a measure that scales back collective bargaining with the county police union. Affects bargaining means the union can refer even the smallest of issues to the collective bargaining process if the issue has any effect on employees. The bill was approved by a 5-4 vote. Those in favor say the police provision is too time-consuming and costly.
What it does is say the chief does not have to bargain the exercise of management rights except when the exercise of that right would result in the layoff of police officers. So if the chief wants to implement an email system, he will be able to do so without having to bargain that, to require that employees check email and have an email account with the county. If the chief wants to distribute scarce equipment like an electronic ticket writer to the officers he thinks will use it the most and have the best track record of writing tickets, he can give it to those officers rather than having to give it out by seniority, as the union had insisted.
In other news, this week, members of the Planning, Housing and Economic Development and Education Committees received an overview on the site selection process for schools in Montgomery County. Though the council does not have a say in the process, it does approve appropriations for site acquisitions. Council President Valerie Irvin told us the council also has an interest in this process when parkland or other policy issues are involved.
What's coming out of this is a work group. I think what we're going to end up with is a better process, a different policy moving forward, and working with the community, with the council, and with the Board of Education. Things are getting a little more complicated as our county builds out. And of course, we're going to need more schools. Where are we going to find the land? How do we build partnerships with maybe the private sector? How do we build new schools that require less land and build them up instead of out? So there are lots of issues on the table, and nothing really got resolved yesterday, but I think that the people who came from the community felt like they were being heard, and I think that's what we do here in Montgomery County. We offer many opportunities for people to weigh in.
And finally, the council took time to recognize the retirement of prominent transportation official Neal Peterson. Mr. Peterson spent 30 years working for the State Highway Administration and oversaw the construction of the Inter-County Connector.
Compared to the rest of the state of Maryland, Montgomery County engages in some of the highest level of dialogue and some of the most challenging issues that we have anywhere in the state.
Even though he is stepping down, Mr. Peterson will still serve as an advisor to the ICC project. Well, that does it for this edition of the Council in Brief. The Council now begins its summer recess and will be back to regular business the week of September 10th. For County Cable Montgomery, I'm Susan Kennedy. Thanks for joining us.